Hey, it's Vicky, and today I'm here to talk about the books that I read in August. August was a crazy month for me personally. Like I've mentioned in a couple of videos, Austin and I both lost our grandmas this month. They happened to pass on the same evening, which was really difficult. So that did affect my reading for a little bit. I just was not in a reading space for much of that week, really. It was, yeah, my brain was not there, so I wasn't reading, but I still did manage to finish 7 books this month. I don't even know how that happened, to be honest with you. So I did read 7 things. I read, let me see here, 4 physical books, an ebook, and 2 audiobooks. So let's dive in. So the first book that I completed in August was On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. And this is a literary book about a young man named Little Dog, and basically he is writing a letter to his mother just about his life, what it was like growing up, being raised by her. She was Vietnamese, and they grew up in poverty and just had a lot of struggles and things, and so he's just sort of reflecting on that. So it has coming of age elements, and this book was beautifully written. I really did love the writing. I actually listened to the book as I read it, just because, I don't know, I wanted that experience, and it happened to also be narrated by Ocean Vuong, the audiobook, so that was great. Yeah, like there's a whole section that starts on page 153 that was just stunning. This was great. I only gave it 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite 5 for me because though I loved the writing, the like plotting of the book, it sort of, I don't know how to explain it. It felt disjointed. It sort of jumped around a little bit, and at times it was just sort of confusing. But otherwise, it was very well written. I definitely want to read Ocean Vuong's poetry now because he is more known as a poet. And actually the section that I was just talking about that was super stunning felt more like a poem, and it was just beautiful. So now I want to read his poetry. But yeah, this was great. If you like hard-hitting sort of coming of age literary books, then you should check this out. I gave it 4.5 stars. You gotta go lay down. Then I read The Sweetness of Forgetting by Kristen Harmel, and I actually did a whole vlog about this. I did a books and baking vlog because this book contained recipes, and so I wanted to sort of do a books and baking for this. And so I have a whole video about this, so I'm not going to talk about it here, but I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. If you want more of my deep thoughts, go check out that vlog. And then the next book that I completed was another one that I did a vlog for, and that is A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. This was one I did for my 100 Epic Reads project, which is another vlog series that I have been doing on my channel for a while. And so once again, I'm not going to talk about this in depth. I gave this 4 stars. I enjoyed it. But again, you want my deep thoughts, go check out that vlog. Next up, I read Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire, and this fulfilled the buzzword challenge for me for this month, which was to read books that had body part words in the title, so I figured bones would work. And this is the second book in the Wayward Children series, which is a series about young kids that start attending this school for wayward children, and it's a school where all the kids have gone to magical worlds and have come back and have been changed, or in some way different from when they went to these magical places. And because they feel different in their coming home and being back with, say, their families or whatever, they struggle, and so they come to this place to stay, and they sort of find camaraderie with other people that have had a similar experience, and so it's very magical in many ways, fantastical, because you're talking about places like, for example, Wonderland or Narnia or whatever, places like that, and you can't help but think of like magical things when you think of places like that. But it's also very much about like feeling like you don't belong and trying to find acceptance and trying to just find peace in the world. And this book centered around two characters from the first book, Jack and Jill, who are twins. They were in the first book, and they were my favorite characters in the first book. So I was excited to read their story, because this basically takes you back to their experience in their like magical land that they went to. And in their case, the way they came into the magical land that is called the Moors is they stumbled upon a trunk that basically, like when they opened it, there were some stairs that led down and down and down to the Moors, which is a sort of dark place, kind of creepy. This book I actually enjoyed quite a bit more than I did the first book. I don't know if it's because I just loved that Jack and Jill were the central focus of this book, but I really, really enjoyed this one. I think I loved the themes the most, because this book talked so much about, as a parent, it really hit home with me, because it talks a lot about how when you have kids, you have to realize that they are not, even though they are in many ways an extension of you, you brought them into the world and everything, but they are their own person. You cannot mold them into what you want them to be. They are going to be who they are. And sadly, a lot of people, I think, become parents because they want to have something, or, you know, have someone that they can mold and control and be an extension of them, extension of their hopes and dreams, maybe things that they didn't do or whatever. And that's sort of the wrong take to have when it comes to parenting. And so even though this book I believe is geared towards young adults, that theme really hit home with me, because I think that's really important, that you let your children be who they are. They might not have the same interests that you have. They might not be anything like you wanted them to be or thought they would be or whatever. And it's important to just let them be their authentic selves. And so I loved that very much. There was actually a passage that I kind of marked, because again, it kind of touches on that subject, and I'm just going to read it to you really quick. So it says, "The trouble with denying children the freedom to be themselves, with forcing them into an idea of what they should be, not allowing them to choose their own paths, is that all too often the one drawing the design knows nothing of the desires of their model. Children are not formless clay, to be shaped according to the sculptor's whim, nor are they blank but identical dolls waiting to be slipped into the mode that suits them best. Give 10 children a toy box and watch them select 10 different toys, regardless of gender or religion or parental expectations. Children have preferences. The danger comes when they, as with any human, are denied those preferences for too long." And so, again, reading this as a mom, it was important to me. I really liked it. So I gave this book 4 stars. I gave the first book, I think, 3 stars. So yes, I enjoyed this one a lot more. I think the third book, I can't remember what it's called. Something about a sugar sky, if I remember right. I think it kind of goes back to the school, and you meet another person that I don't think you've met before. So yes, so far, like I said, this series started out a little shaky, and I'm glad I decided to continue, and I really enjoyed this, and I'm gonna read the next book, hopefully soon. Then I finished Peaceable Kingdom by Jack Ketchum. This is a short story collection that I started way back in July, and just was taking my time with it and sort of reading a story or two every couple days, you know, just kind of picking it up when I wanted to. Jack Ketchum is a horror writer who I wanted to read more of his stuff, because a couple years ago I read his book, The Girl Next Door, and it completely just messed me up. It was very dark, very gritty, but really, really well written. And so I knew I wanted to check him out again. And so I, you know, read this short story collection, and I have to say the writing still was solid, really good. But a lot of the stories, there were like 30 stories in here, so they weren't very long, but a lot of them for me were just 3 stars. I don't know why. I think it's because for me, I struggle sometimes with short stories, because a lot of times I feel like they sort of have a slow go, and then the conclusion, like the and the ending just just is like rushed, and I felt that a lot in a lot of these stories, and I didn't like that very much. But I did really like the writing. Some of the standout, sorry, my cat's standing on me. I need to read my notes, please. Some of my standouts for this were The Box, Megan's Law, The Visitor, and then my favorite one was called Snakes. And let me tell you, if you have a fear of snakes, that story will probably make you pee your pants, because I am not afraid of snakes at all, and it even kind of gave me the willies. So I loved it though. That one was my favorite. But yeah, for the most part, the stories were like 3 stars. I definitely want to read more of his stuff. I know he has a book called The Lost that I want to read. And there's another one. I can't remember what it's called. But anyways, I want to read more of his long stuff again, because I think that might suit me a little better. So what I do with short story collections is I average out. I rate every single story and then I do an average, and this averaged out to a 3.5. So not surprising, but it was good. If you are a Jack Ketchum fan and you want to check this out, I say do it, because it was good, but I have a feeling that his long fiction is better. Next, I read a book on my Kindle called Drowning: The Rescue of Flight 1421 by TJ Newman, and this one was quite a ride. It was about a plane that takes off from Hawaii and quickly, upon takeoff, crashes into the ocean. And when it crashes into the ocean, there are people on the plane that basically survive the crash, and the plane sinks to not quite the bottom of the ocean, but it sinks down quite a ways. And there are people inside, but the way that the plane crashes, there's like an air pocket in the plane, and so they are alive, but they are in this plane quite far down in the ocean, and they have to be rescued. So this book for me personally played into some fears I have. Like, I am very claustrophobic and for me, like scuba diving, anything where you're really far underwater is absolutely terrifying to me. The thought of being trapped in a plane underwater is very scary. So for me, it did play into those fears quite a bit. I think that this book was very fast-paced. It was action-packed. It was one of those books that like every chapter ended in a cliffhanger where you had to just keep reading. You just wanted to binge it. And yeah, so I read through this pretty quickly because it was like, I had to. It just like, I had to keep reading it. I think it would make a great movie. It was very cinematic, and yeah, I think it would make a great sort of like disaster action kind of movie. It would be really fun. So overall, I enjoyed it. It was, I mean, it wasn't too deep with the characters so much or anything, but it was a great plot-driven story. And I gave it 3.5 stars. And then I finished out the month by reading my favorite book of the month. And that was Viola Davis's memoir, Finding Me. So yeah, this is just about Viola growing up from, you know, her childhood to, I can't remember exactly where it kind of stopped, but you see her grow up, and she grew up in poverty and had a lot of challenges in her childhood, basically. And you just see how she became an actress and all of that, and she gave some insights into her craft and how, you know, how rewarding but also challenging, you know, that career is. And so I loved this. This book had me crying at points because of some of the things that she went through. Particularly, she experiences a loss later on in the book. I won't go into detail in case you want to read it, but she experiences a loss that really, because of I think the losses that we experienced as a family this month, that just really hit me hard. It had me crying. And yeah, I loved this. I listened to the audiobook. Viola Davis narrates it, so that made it even better. I binged this. I couldn't stop listening to this until it was done. I loved it. I want to go back now and watch How to Get Away with Murder and a bunch of other movies that she's been in, because I feel like she's in a lot of good movies. Yeah, I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. And you guys know I have been struggling this year with 5-star books, and this was a 5-star, so that made me very happy. And I would say if you like celebrity memoirs, if you are a fan of Viola Davis and you want to know more about her, check out this book. It was really good. All right, so that's it. That's my reading wrap up for August. I mean, for the most part, I read some really good stuff. I had a 5-star read, which is awesome. And most of the books I read were very good, so I can't complain. Let me know down below what your favorite book of August was. I would love to know. And that's it. I hope you guys had a great month, and I hope September treats you well, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching.